She offered them the fakest of smiles, her eyes narrowing on Dean momentarily before moving back to Jack. "What brings you to Vegas?" Jack asked, as if he didn't know. "You told me this was one of your nicer hotels. I thought it was past time for me to spend time in it." "My father owns the casinos, Heather, not me." All Heather saw was money. Didn't matter where it came from, so long as she could access it. She waved a hand in the air. "You're splitting straws again, Jack." "Hairs. Splitting hairs." She placed her fingers on his arm and squeezed. "You know how I dislike being corrected," she reminded him. "You know how I hated you always showing up where I didn't want you." And that was when they were dating. Jack had broken up with her mid-summer. It was now November. She leaned in and whispered in his ear, "Can we find a moment alone?" He loosened his tie and tilted his Stetson back on his head. "We're in the middle of a bachelor party, Heather." Dean tossed back another tequila and sucked on a lime. "Won't take but a minute, darling." "It hurts to smile when you're gritting your teeth." Jack forced his jaw to unclench at her syrupy endearments. He remembered the day he put a halt to their brief affair. They were attending a fundraiser at the club in Houston, and Jack noticed a beautiful brunette across the room eyeing him. Heather had scolded him with her breathy voice. "Jack, dear, please try to keep your eyes on me when we're together. I don't care what you do, or who you might play with once we're married. But to be so obvious when we're standing next to each other, it's simply boorish, don't you think, darling?" Where Heather cooked up the idea she would ever be Mrs. Jack Morrison, he'd never know. But it was then Jack realized how superficial his arm candy was. In a way, he felt sorry for her. "Well?" Heather pulled him into the present with her question. Jack knew exactly how to get rid of her, for the last time. He nodded toward Tom. "Out front and 10?" Tom grinned. "We'll walk this one around, sober him up a little." Mike helped Dean to his feet while Jack motioned Heather toward the door. The two of them wiggled around the people hovering at the slot machines. Someone at the craps table yelled out, and the crowd around him cheered. An older woman leaned back in her chair as Heather walked by and brushed against her. Heather scowled and muttered something ugly under her breath. "Excuse me, miss." Heather tilted her jaw higher, said nothing, and walked away. The older woman looked genuinely sorry, but at a loss for words. Embarrassed, Jack took Heather by her arm and led her outside under the bright lights of the valet parking lot. The valet noticed him and snapped to attention. Before the valet moved a foot, Jack waved him off. "So, what are you really doing here, Heather?" She angled her head to the side and painted on a smile. "I don't like where we've been lately, Jack. I miss you." Jack held his ground when she moved forward. "There isn't any we any longer. I thought I made myself clear." "I've given you a break. Now I want the break to be over." She slid her hand over his chest. He stopped her by holding onto her wrist. "I didn't ask for a break. I said we were over. We don't want the same things." He didn't want a trophy wife, and that was all Heather could offer. The edges of her lips fell into a pout. "We know the same people, play in the same circles. We're perfect for each other." "No, we're not. I want someone to be with me for more than my wallet. We both know that woman isn't you." Jack noticed the diamond-studded bracelet hanging off her wrist. They had been dating during her last birthday, and Jack had given it to her. He regretted the gift now. Heather's fake pout faded, and a spark of anger sparked in her eyes. "Every woman with you is going to be there for the money, Jack. I just happened to be honest about it." Her words stung, probably because they held some truth. It was hard to look past his father's billions and Jack's own millions. Still, the blonde in front of him had just made it clear she didn't care about him at all. Jack drew the line there. He waved to the senior valet, who quickly ran over. "Yes, Mr. Morrison? Can you bring my car around?"